Welcome back. You're still watching Network Africa on Channels Television. Now, the U.S. Secretary of State, Mr. John Kerry, met with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi on Sunday, August the 2nd, after heading talks with the country's foreign minister at the first strategic dialogue between the two sides since 2009. U.S.-Egyptian relations cooled after the Islamist President Mohamed Morsi was ousted in 2013 by the military amid mass protests against his rule. But Cairo remains one of Washington's closest security allies in the Middle East, an increasingly crucial role in a region beset by turmoil in Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and Libya. Secretary Kerry is in Doha, but for more on the outcome of that meeting, we're joined by the Voice of America's Heather Murdock. Heather, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Cynthia.
It's a pleasure, as always. Now, what was the outcome of that meeting between Secretary Kerry and the Egyptian authorities?
Well, it was a significant step, I think, for Egypt and the U.S. to repair their military relation. They haven't actually had a strategic dialogue meeting since 2009, but the relationship over the past year or so has been particularly contentious. As you mentioned before, that the U.S. actually withdrew military aid after Mr. Mohamed Morsi was deposed and the current President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi took power. So earlier this year, the U.S. resumed military aid. And prior to this meeting, the U.S. sent F-16 fighter jets and other weapons to Egypt. And at the meeting itself, U.S. Secretary of State promised that America was ready to give more military aid to to Egypt. And both countries said that they were prepared to work closer together in the future to fight terrorism, particularly the militants in the Sinai Peninsula that are affiliated with the Islamic State.
Heather, was there any talk about the crackdown on the press and the Muslim Brotherhood?
Yes, this is the major point of contention now between Egypt and the U.S. America says that the crackdown on the Muslim Brotherhood is part of a bad human rights record. And a particular point of contention is that they say that journalists and activists have been swept up in the crackdown, that were not actually doing anything for the Muslim Brotherhood, but were just using their right of free expression or free press. The Egyptian government, however, says that the Muslim Brotherhood is a terrorist organization, and all of this crackdown has been about fighting terrorism and protecting the people of Egypt. Both parties at the meeting did allude to this disagreement. However, the Egyptian government, prior to this meeting, had said that they know how the U.S. feels about their crackdown on the Muslim Brotherhood, and they disagree, and they didn't really want to talk about it with American officials because they wanted to have a good relationship. And this relationship for both countries is strategic partnership, so I can see why they're sort of agreeing to disagree at the same time holding firm to their positions.
Well, Heather, just before I let you go, I want to ask if you've heard about the development today. Let's talk about something else besides the meeting which took place yesterday. How are Egyptians reacting to the new election law signed by President Sisi? I believe that took place today.
Yes, and I think people are cautiously optimistic. They're a little shy to get too excited because these elections, these parliamentary elections, have been delayed for so long. The Egyptian parliament was dissolved in 2012. We were supposed to have elections in March. And all of this has to do with the fact that the law in 2012, the court said, was unconstitutional, so the parliament was dissolved. So the challenge was to get a new law that would be upheld in the courts after the elections. So people are excited that it's possible that we actually are going to have parliamentary elections soon. And this is important because right now the Egyptian government is a monolith, and there's not much checks and balances in the system. It is to be seen whether the new parliament will be a check and balance, but first we actually have to get the elections done. And so people are hoping this is a step towards that.
Well, Heather, thank you so much for filling us in on the details. We're very grateful for your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The Voice of America's Heather Murdock reporting from Cairo. Now to other matters, especially in the sports world. In the event that the doping allegations are true, the International Olympic Committee says it will act with zero tolerance. This comes a day after the Sunday Times published data from 5,000 athletes, which it says reveals an extraordinary extent of cheating. The data belongs to the International Association of Athletics Federations. The blood test data covering the period between 2001 and 2012 was leaked by a whistleblower to a German broadcaster and the Sunday Times. Well, for more on this, we're joined by our very own sports correspondent, Yemi Adebayo. He's with me in studio. Yemi, thank you very much for your time.
Always a pleasure.
Another scandal.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, what percentage, or is there a chance, let me start by saying that, is there a chance that we have that a ton of those athletes being accused of doping are African?
Yeah, there is. The Kenyans have been involved. Russia and Kenya are the principal actors. Well, as far as the Kenyans are concerned, they feel it's a smear campaign. But the facts of the case, or should I say what has been revealed in recent times, since Sunday, was that 800 you talked about 12,000 samples from 5,000 athletes. 800 of those samples are from Kenya. 77 of those results show suspicious signs of doping, and that's where the problem is. 2 years ago, a Kenyan athlete, Jepto, was discovered to use EPO, that hormone that is responsible for athletes use it when they spike up the system. So that, all of those issues are there. They figure prominently in this as well as the Russians. And the funny one for me, I pity our African brother Lamine Diack, because he's the president of the IAAF, that's the International Athletics Federation, and a lot of people have questioned what the IAAF has done to really ensure that they fight against doping. WADA, that's the World Anti-Doping Agency, has said they are shocked by the revelations. You talked about the German broadcaster and the Times. And so all of this is going to be very interesting. 3 weeks ahead of the World Athletics Championship in Beijing. But it's a sad one that the Kenyans are in this one. Well, like I said, they're saying it's a smear campaign, but it's their word against their accusers.
What is really interesting here is what the International Olympic Committee is saying, in that there will be zero tolerance. What kind of consequences are we talking about here, if it's proven that these allegations are true?
Yeah, in times past, people have said that not much has been done. Some people just got away with a slap on the wrist. And you see some of these guys who have had doping offenses come back one way or the other and still run. So in this case, the IOC is taking a tough stance. We're looking at a period between 2001 and 2012, and there are claims that some people who won medals at the London 2012 Olympics are among those people suspected to have spiked up their system. So the IOC is saying, they might take away some medals. That's it. Some associations might receive bans. Some athletes might also get the ban. So a lot of all of these things will happen.
Well, yeah, we're going to get updates from you because this is obviously a developing story. Yeah. So maybe tomorrow, maybe next tomorrow, hopefully you grace us with your presence. Thank you very much. That's our sports correspondent, Yemi Adebayo. Well, from sports, we go to the issue of illicit poaching. Well, by now, you've definitely heard about the murder of Cecil the Lion. The killing of the exceptional Zimbabwean lion has caused the United Nations General Assembly to call on all countries to step up their efforts to tackle illicit poaching and trafficking in wildlife amid global uproar over the unlawful killing of Cecil the lion in Zimbabwe.
Like most people in the world, we are outraged at what happened to this poor lion. Hunting activities are partly legal, partly illegal. And it is this resolution which fights all the illegal aspects of it.
Well, on that note, here is our question of the day. We're asking you questions based on what we just discussed with Yemi about the doping allegations. And we're simply asking, do you think the doping allegations concerning the IAAF are true? Well, feel free to send us your feedback either via email or Twitter. The address and handle are right there on your screen. As always, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me on Network Africa. I'm Cynthia Are.